It started with a slap, not a scream, not a chase, just a sharp, echoing crack in the middle of a quiet street in Jasper Heights, Georgia. Midnight shift, nearly dead out, and Officer Leah Morrison thought she was just doing her job. She thought she was in control. But within minutes, that slap would unravel her career, her sense of self, and maybe, just maybe, her entire understanding of justice. See, it was supposed to be routine. A black luxury sedan gliding a little too smooth through a four-way stop. No blinker. That was enough, technically. Leah had been on the force for 15 years. She'd written tickets for less. And maybe, just maybe, something about the car, the confidence, the silence of the street. It made her want to remind someone who was in charge. She hit the lights. The sedan eased over like it didn't have a care in the world. Leah stepped out slow, hand on her belt, posture stiff, like a warning. When the window rolled down, there he was, mid-40s, navy suit, calm, black, and that look, not scared, not submissive, just waiting. "License and registration," she said, a little sharper than she meant to. He raised an eyebrow, not in defiance but in quiet control. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" That got under her skin. He said it too smooth, too composed, no guilt, no panic. And maybe that's what set something off inside her. Because when he asked again why she'd pulled him over, and she told him it was for a turn signal, he just nodded, like he already knew how flimsy the excuse was. "Step out of the vehicle." He blinked, sighed, unbuckled. No resistance, just presence. And then, when she told him to put his hands on the trunk, something inside her, something ugly and fast and buried, it snapped. Her palm met his cheek with a force that echoed down the street like a gunshot. He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He just turned, slowly, and pulled a badge from his jacket, Chief Jeremiah Banks. Her boss, the chief of police for Jasper Heights. She couldn't breathe, didn't even hear the backup pulling up behind her. Officer Ken Reyes, her partner, stepped out of the cruiser, confused. "Everything all right, Leah?" Banks didn't say a word, just held up his badge and said calmly, "Your officer here was conducting a stop." And then he drove away, like nothing happened. But Leah knew better. The silence, that was worse than yelling. That night she barely slept. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her mind kept circling the moment, the slap, the silence, the eyes. By morning, she was called in. Internal affairs. Suspension. Indefinite. But here's where it turns. 3 nights later, her phone buzzes. It's Chief Banks. "Meet me. Riverside Bench. 10 minutes. She almost didn't go. But something about the weight in his voice, not anger, not pity, pulled her in. The park was mostly empty. Chief Banks stood near the water, hands in his pockets, staring at the current. He didn't look at her when she arrived. "You know why I didn't report you?" he asked finally. Leah swallowed. "No, sir." "Because I wanted you to sit with it, to feel it." "I do," she whispered. "No, you don't. Not yet." He gestured toward a bench. She sat. "You ever been pulled over, Morrison?" She blinked. "I mean, maybe. Once or twice?" He exhaled. "I've been stopped in every city I've ever lived. I've been asked why I'm walking in my own neighborhood. I've had my hands up before I even reached for my ID, just to survive the moment." She didn't know what to say. "You hit me because I didn't act afraid of you," he said. And he was right. That slap? It wasn't fear. It wasn't self-defense. It was control. It was a punishment. For his calm. For his poise. He looked at her hard. "You're not the first, but you could be the one who faces it." And that's when it hit her. The real question wasn't whether she was racist. It was whether she'd built her instincts on a system that was, and whether she'd been okay with that. Now, let me back up a sec, because what most people don't know is, Jeremiah Banks didn't just wake up one day with a badge and a suit and some big city command. Nah, the man earned his backbone the hard way. Army Ranger, 2 tours in Kandahar, lost his best friend in a night ambush in the Hindu Kush, spent 3 days pinned down without supplies, kept a dozen rookies alive by bluffing enemy coordinates over a busted comm line, came back home with scars under his shirt and nightmares in his bones, and instead of cashing in some speaking gig or settling into a nice quiet desk job, he joined the academy again, from scratch, because he didn't trust what the badge meant anymore. He studied psychology on weekends, learned de-escalation like it was gospel, built community patrol programs from the ground up. Wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, but he was respected, even by those who didn't want to admit it. So when Leah hit him, she didn't just slap a man. She struck every lesson he'd bled to teach, and she didn't even realize it until it was too late. But the fallout, oh, that came fast. By morning, local reporters were already sniffing around. Someone had leaked the body cam timestamp. Just the stop, not the slap, but enough for whispers to start. Then came the Twitter storm. Slapped, the chief started trending within 2 hours after a dispatcher anonymously confirmed the incident. Some folks were furious. Others called it a witch hunt. But most were just confused. How could a senior officer misjudge her own boss? That's when the press conferences started. The mayor stumbled through a speech about transparency. The department's PR officer looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Civil rights groups showed up on the steps of City Hall, demanding accountability, policy change, public hearings. And Leah? She became the face of everything wrong, or everything misunderstood, depending on which channel you watched. And let me tell you, that attention, it cuts both ways. Because while some folks called her a monster, others said she was being set up, that it was just a slap, or that Banks had baited her, or even worse, that he was playing some race card game, ugly stuff. And in the middle of it all, there was Officer Ken Reyes, the one who showed up late, the one who didn't see the slap, but later told Internal Affairs he suspected something happened. He backed Banks, and for that, someone slashed his tires. Anonymous calls to his wife. Watch your back, snitch. It got bad, fast, and that's just the first half. But the real storm didn't hit until the internal hearing was open to public scrutiny. 3 rows of reporters, cameras outside the department building. Protesters on both sides, some chanting for Leah's resignation, others demanding she be reinstated. Signs like, "Protect our officers," right next to "Accountability now." Inside the room, you could cut the tension with a knife. Officer Leah Morrison sat across from the review board, her hands stiff in her lap, eyes locked on the man she had struck, who, once again, sat calm and unreadable. Beside him was a civilian oversight attorney, a sharp-tongued woman named Rebecca Langston, and on the opposite side, the union rep who insisted Leah was under duress and didn't realize the man's identity. Langston didn't let that slide. "Are we now suggesting," she said dryly, "that slapping civilians is acceptable as long as they don't hold rank?" Dead silence. The board asked Leah to recount the incident again, her version, without body cam footage. She tried. Her throat clenched halfway through. She stammered. And then came the word she'd been dreading since it all began. "Assumed," Chief Banks repeated quietly when she admitted she thought he might be resisting. "You assumed." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. That one word? It echoed. Outside the hearing, things got worse. Media clips were spliced. TikToks went viral. People debated everything. Her badge, her intentions, even her marriage. Leah couldn't go to the grocery store without glances. Couldn't check her inbox without threats or rants. Her neighbors whispered. One even put up a "Back the Blue" flag across from her lawn, as if to say, "Not you, though." But you know what cut deepest? There were also letters. From Black parents. From veterans. From kids who looked up to Banks. Letters that didn't scream, didn't blame, just asked, "How many times has this happened without a badge to stop it?" And that hit her harder than any suspension ever could. Now here's where it got complicated. Because Banks, he could have buried her, could have pressed charges, gone public, wrecked her career for good, but he didn't. And in a quiet meeting, just the two of them, he gave her a choice. "File closes in 3 days," he said, sitting across from her in the community outreach center he built with his own hands. "You walk away, say nothing, start fresh. I won't speak against you. Or, you file the report yourself. You put the slap on record. Make it real. Own it." Leah blinked. "Why would I do that?" "Because one of us has to be brave enough to admit the system's broken," he said. "And if I do?" she asked. "What happens then?" He leaned back, arms folded. "Then we build something better." For 2 days she wrestled with it. She talked to a lawyer, her sister, her old training sergeant, who told her to stay quiet and wait it out. But in the end, she didn't listen to any of them. She filed the report herself. And when she did, the city flipped. Some praised her. Others called it career suicide. But for the first time since that slap, she felt clear. That's when the letters started changing too. One came from a woman named Denise Harper, the bystander who had been walking her dog the night of the stop. She didn't have a video, but she saw the strike. She hadn't known who he was, but she'd heard the sound, saw the man's head jerk, and saw him not retaliate. She had stayed silent. But when Leah went public, Denise came forward. "I was scared," she wrote. "But watching you face what you did made me realize silence is just another kind of harm." Her testimony confirmed the truth. And now, everything moved fast. The police board held a second review. Banks pushed for something unheard of. Not just a disciplinary verdict, but a new department-wide initiative. Instinct audit training. A program built for veteran cops to reevaluate subconscious bias, control, and escalation patterns. Guess who was the first officer enrolled? Leah Morrison. And yeah, that first day of training? It wasn't pretty. She walked into a tiny room with 11 other officers, some rookies, some salty vets who didn't want to be there. They avoided eye contact. Some whispered. One laughed. At the front of the room was Joanna Pierce, retired detective, 30 years on the force, calm as a storm cloud. She didn't smile. She hit play on a video. It was a traffic stop, an officer escalating a situation that didn't need to be escalated. Joanna paused the clip, turned, and locked eyes with Leah. "What did the officer see?" she asked. Leah's throat tightened. "A threat," she whispered. Joanna nodded. "And what did you see when you pulled over Chief Banks?" Leah exhaled slowly. "The same." "And was he?" "No." Joanna leaned in. "Then where'd that idea come from?" And for the first time, Leah didn't fight the truth. She sat with it. 2 months later, she returned to active duty. Same uniform, same badge, but not the same cop. The station hummed like always, phones ringing, reports flying, officers chatting in the break room. But when she walked in, the room shifted. Not with judgment, not with pity, but with the quiet tension of a second chance. Some still didn't talk to her. Some looked her in the eye and nodded. Chief Banks? He didn't make a speech. He didn't shake her hand. He just passed her in the hallway one morning and said, "Ready to rebuild?" She nodded. And that was it. Because this story, it isn't about redemption in a movie scene. It's about what happens after. The silent, awkward, uncomfortable rebuilding. The kind that comes from facing your own reflection and not looking away. Leah knows she'll always be remembered for that night. But maybe, just maybe, she'll also be remembered for what came after. The programs she helped design, the recruits she helped train, the times she pulled back instead of pushing forward, and the courage it took to stay on the job after realizing she'd been part of the problem. Prejudice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a reflex, a moment, a silence. The question is, what do you do once you recognize it? Because that's where justice begins. And now, we want to hear from you. Was Chief Banks right to give her a second chance? Should Leah have resigned, or did she earn her way back? Would you have forgiven her? Let us know in the comments. And if this story made you think, share it. Because the conversations that matter don't start with answers. They start with listening.